Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very, very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
I am Heidi Gross. I am calling from upstate New York, Hudson Falls, New York, and so grateful to be here.
Thank you. I just wanted to go ahead and dig into your past leading up into the great thing you do for the world in the future, to the future. I'll start talking a whole bunch about it and then it'll become the actual Kimberly Cloud show. So go ahead and tell me about your past leading up into your present.
Absolutely. So I've been an HR professional for about 26 years, and I loved it. It was actually my first love in terms of a career choice. I love being in front of and impacting and developing people. But to be honest, the last several years has been a little bit of a strain. I've been a little burnt out, and as people learn my story, they'll realize a big part of that was helping my youngest child through transition of identity. And I found that my outside work was taking me away from the priority of that child. And
Tell me,
so,
tell
go
me
ahead.
about that. Tell me about the transition that you had to make from HR to I believe you write books to genealogy. So tell me about all of that and tell me about how you incorporated your life to work around for your son or your daughter or transgender to help them get on a better path to facing what they want to become. This is a transition. That's why they call it transgender. It's like a
Mhm.
transition for
Yeah.
everybody, and that's a loving family.
Yeah, it got to be a little bit complicated. I was working in, outside the home prior to COVID, very corporate. You need to go be in an office for a good portion of the time. And my journey with uh, my child Thorin is their adopted name, and I was getting calls because they were having anxiety issues. They were really struggling in school, just because of the anxiety of going through trying to figure out who they were. And I don't know if it's ever a good thing to go through a pandemic, but in my line of work, I was able to transition to be more virtual in my job. And
Okay.
that allowed me to really focus on them. The problem was everything passed and people wanted to start having people going back into the office. And I started to make a transition to try to work in a more remote environment, to be there for my child. And up until last fall, it was sort of a hybrid thing. But my child was struggling still. And we've gone through some hospitalizations for their mental health, and I just didn't feel present. So I transitioned to working from home, and then 6 months ago, I decided to completely change the trajectory of my life. I've always actually been a genealogist. I started doing genealogy for fun as a hobby about 17 years ago, and that transitioned into a side business. So I decided, well, I'm going to marry these two passions. I have all these life skills from being an HR person, so I'm just going to reinvent myself, publish my own books, and be more present in my current passions. And one of those is my kids, and another one is HR, and another one is genealogy. So I'm trying to figure out how to put all that together, and it culminated over the summer into my first book was about my journey with my child's transition. And it's not an easy journey. And so I wanted other parents to know that they're not alone. It doesn't matter if your child is gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, pansexual. I learned all sorts of new uh, phrases over this 5 years, and it's been a journey, but it's brought my son and I much closer together. And I just want to inform or at least try to educate some people that it's not a bad thing. It's transition. It's a transition for the family as well as the child.
You know what I believe they should do, because it's just starting to be such a bad thing where transgender mingles around amongst the rest of the population. I think that they should, just like they have a juvenile justice center. It wouldn't be a bad thing though. It would be like a center for transgenders,
Hmm.
bisexual, gay, so that they can be amongst themselves in the population and they don't have to worry about being bullied
Hmm.
and teachers not helping them and teachers actually laughing at the jokes people make,
Hmm.
making them feel even worse and want to go to mental health, and yeah, that's how I feel. What do you think?
Well, it was interesting. Back in the day, I was highly against homeschooling. I thought it's a terrible idea. Kids need socialization, and I was never thought I would homeschool my child. Then the pandemic hit, and we all had to homeschool our children. And technology has caught up with the education system to give more of a robust. Because if I had to teach my child like math, it would be a disaster. But I don't have to. There are tools and organizations out there where I can do it from home and do it more robustly and actually give them a better education that they might have had if they went into in-person school. And that was a transition I had to make last spring because my child every 6 months was needing to be hospitalized. They were getting farther and farther behind in their school work because they were missing so much time. And I said, this is ridiculous. We're on this like spinning wheel and we need to make a change. And so
Oh, I have a question.
yeah.
What if you and other, because I know they have a tree. They have a tree of friends or associates that they talk to. You get with the mothers and fathers of other transgenders, and y'all come up with y'all. I mean, I know it would be horrible, but I mean, it wouldn't be horrible, but come up with your own curriculum, like like have a tutor, like I don't know, like disperse money so they can be amongst each other. I just feel like they should be amongst each other so that when they get mature enough, they should be able to, because it's like you dropping people with environment where parents are telling their children that it's wrong to be transgender. Parents are telling children that you should fight them, and it's just not right. Mental
Yeah.
health isn't like he has so much negative energy inside his brain right now. He's not, or she is not thinking about doing their work because
Yeah.
they're focused on trying to find an identity, and or getting bullied, and I don't know. I really feel for those LGBT people.
Well, and the thing is it's much more common than people even know. And I don't think there's definitely more community around and embracing uh, that community. And one of my goals this past couple of years is participating in the community. So, I brought not only my son, but I have a stepdaughter with my fantastic husband, and she's very interested. She's not gay or she's not part of the community per se, but she's very close to my son. And for the last several years, when they come to visit, we go to the local Albany, New York, which is the capital city, Pride. So every June we go to Pride. And last year we walked in the parade with my company that I was with at the time, and it was actually very moving for me personally to see them see the outpouring of support and community that is out there, and they're not alone, and there are people that are, I mean, there are people that get bullied. I got bullied when I was a kid because I had glasses. There's always going to be something, some flaw that children are going to latch onto. And, I'm my hope. I grew up with a lot of gay and lesbian friends in my generation who sort of paved the way for my child now. And my hope is that this will become more and more normalized. I mean, when I was a kid, gay marriage was illegal, and it still is in some states. And so, but I'm seeing this transition of normalcy. So, rather than segregating, I'm actually hoping to sort of give more inclusion into regular society. And it's, you don't need to be defined by your sexuality, your gender, whether you're a redhead like me, if you have freckles, if you have glasses. Those are all labels, and people will always continue to find a label for
Right.
somebody. So, why can't Thorin just be Thorin, right? Why do they have to be my transgender son?
Yeah.
I don't like that label, but that's necessary for me to educate other people on how to um, refer to them, what pronouns to use, and I'm still learning. I every day I run into somebody within my own, community of LGBTQ plus, and I'm still not using the right pronoun for that person because I still have to retrain my brain in the societal norms that I grew up with. So, it's going to be a process, but my goal is to have other parents not feel like, does anybody else feel this way? And absolutely they do. They're all over the world.
Well said. And I understand what you mean. You shouldn't segregate. The community is doing the June. I don't really know much about it. The June, the LGBT community gathering, and that had to be huge in Albany.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
the people.
Tens of thousands of people come to this event every single year.
Yeah, and they express. Do they have like speakers there? Like, tell
Yeah,
us about it.
it's a whole festival. It is a day long festival with music and speakers and vendors, and it's an opportunity for people to just be whoever they want to be, and watch other people in the community embrace that and say, you know what, it's okay. As a very close friend of mine used to say, let your freak flag fly, just be you unapologetically. And, you know, that's part of being who you are. And if that's a big part of your identity, well, then that's fine. But my goal is to just not have Thorin be a transgender male. My goal is to be my gender son is a fantastic photographer, or whatever it is that their passion leads them to. I just want them to be my child. And that is what everybody wants. I want them to be happy and healthy and successful and self assured and confident. But when you're part of this community, it gets a little bit more challenging, right? Because not everybody is open or educated or understanding. And sometimes it's just people just don't know what to say. I had a very good friend of mine just this afternoon say, he found out that I wrote the book, and he's like, can you sit down with me as a friend, and let me know what I need to know. I know you'll be honest with me, and I know you won't judge me. I want to be more compassionate and inclusive, but I don't have the first clue of how to approach it. And that's what I'm trying to do, is just help people approach it, because it's not a taboo topic. It's just an opportunity for conversation. I, to this day, have conversations with my son that say, okay, you need to understand where I'm coming from, because I gave birth to a little girl. And in some ways, I have to let that child die in order for Thorin to live. And that's an emotional thing for a parent. It's
Deep.
difficult.
That's
Yeah,
really deep.
it's very deep. I have pictures.
Yeah.
through my house of a little girl, and they don't want to be associated with that identity, and that's a big shift for well, it's for me, but I'm sure it is for a lot of parents. I am totally supportive of whatever transition they want to make, but I'm still sort of mourning the other child, and I have to work through that, and
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of parents have to work through that. I also understand the complications that come with being a member of the community. I knew the minute they came out to me, when they were literally 12 years old, um, that there were going to be bumps ahead. There was going to be times when they were not going to be treated well or accepted. Um, and no parent wants to see their child struggle like that. You want to protect them, you want them to feel good about themselves, and it's hard, it's a hard road, but I absolutely believe that it just made the two of us so much closer. I mean, I am very lucky and grateful that I literally can have a conversation with my son about anything. When they are struggling with something, or they're trying to get away with something, as teenagers do, they end up telling me because we have that kind of relationship. And that's all I want, is for parents to accept all aspects of their child, not just, oh, they're an athlete, or oh, they get straight A's, or whatever the metric that parents use of success for their child. I think mental health is a very important aspect of anybody going through um, any kind of transition, whether it's just coming out because you're a lesbian or you're gay or whatever the case may be. It doesn't have to be transgender. It can be anybody who feels like they fall within that community, just being heard, just being accepted. And it's very scary. I have a lot of interactions with a lot of Thorin's friends over the years who are in a similar situation, who do not have the support and the understanding and the compassion at home. And,
Do you think
that's
that should be
very sad.
yeah, well said. Do you think that there should be like curriculum in the schools on LGBT to make it more comfortable within the schools instead of segregation?
I think there should be more awareness.
Yeah.
I'm not naive in believing that there are, districts and areas of the country that are absolutely never going to approve that. Um,
Go
yeah,
ahead, go ahead. Tell me why. I want to
well, I
know.
mean, if you think back, just even in my generation, one of the big stigmas around curriculum was sex education. You know,
Okay.
we don't want to talk about contraception. We don't want to talk about sex education in our schools because it's inappropriate. Everybody's gonna start having sex, and you know, it it took a long time for our health classes to incorporate some of that, because they realized teenagers, whether we talk about it or not, are going to experiment with these things, right? So being upfront and honest with, the students, or at least giving them some structure, will help. And that's my hope, as down the road, other programs, whether it be within the school district or extracurricular. They actually had a club in my son's former school. It wasn't part of the curriculum, but there was a club that you could join that was it wasn't necessarily for LGBTQ, it was for acceptance around bringing other kids together in a way that was constructive, to talk about the differences and being okay with whatever that difference was. And I think that can be a very good start. I think, having that sort of okay environment for kids to participate in is a good start. But like I said, I'm not naive to say that yes, everybody should include this as part of their health curriculum. Um, I don't know that we're there. I Obviously, these gender studies, this is part of higher education. curriculum in universities. Whether or not you're going to see it in elementary schools, middle schools, or high schools, I don't know how welcoming that would be. But I'm willing to push for it if somebody's willing to accept it.
You know,
I think it's just awareness about any other segment of the population.
your son, he's like a third to fourth generation of the wave of people coming out. I think this started happening mostly in the 90s, so maybe he's like a 90s baby or something. I don't know, but he's like the second or the third wave. And I think that this should be like with your genealogy, and I mean, back in the day, way back in the day, there used to be gay and lesbian. The
Mhm.
males used to
Yeah.
sleep with the males, but nobody really spoke of it. It went away for a little bit, but the percentage went down, and then it went back up, and now it's back up, and everybody is aware of it. You
Yes.
know, um, I hope that with y'all getting along and everything, that he can probably be somebody up there speaking one day of his trials and tribulations as being uh having not he doesn't have mental health issues. Somebody pushed him, to go through this,
Yeah.
and I don't think that that's a solid label, you
Hmm.
know. So yeah, I feel like yeah, your I hope your family be up there speaking and talking about, well, when I was this age, it happened like this, and I think we need to change this or something like that sort.
Yeah, but I actually give a lot of shout outs to people that I like. Some of my closest and dearest friends are people that I met in high school. I have about a dozen or more friends that I still am connected with, and I'm 52 years old. So, we've been friends for over 30 years, a lot of us. And one of which was very close, very dear friend to me to this day, didn't feel comfortable in coming out to me until he was in his mid 20s. Now, did I know in high school? Yeah, I kind of knew in high school. But people would approach me and say, is this person gay? And I'm like, not until he tells me he is. I'm not going to speculate. If he tells me he is and he wants everybody to know that, I will share that with you. But until he says it, I'm not going to say, yeah, he's gay. But what was so amazing to me was this past year when we did go to Pride, two of my oldest friends were there at Pride who are both gay, with me and my children. Um, and we're standing up there. Now, both of these gentlemen are in their 50s. And, you know, to be standing next to my child and saying, these guys laid the ground that you are now walking on. I constantly am saying, you think it's hard, but there are people who have already walked where
True.
you're walking, and they've cleared a path. And the fact that my child was comfortable enough in today's society to come out to me at the age of 12 is, to me, miraculous, because they've saved over a decade of time, uh, being who they think they want to be. And it makes me sad sometimes when I think about how long it took some of the generations before me to feel comfortable, even with really close friends, to say, this is who I really am. And I remember the moment that my friend Kyle came out to me. It was in the middle of the street after my friend's wedding, and my reaction was, I just gave him a huge hug, because I felt relieved in him feeling comfortable enough to come out. And I just want other kids to feel that way. And I know for a fact that there are a lot of households out there where that's not going to be the case. they're not going to be accepted, even by their own parents. And that makes me very sad. And so educating parents in sort of giving them the okay to say, it's okay to love your child, regardless of what community they identify with.
See, but I don't
You
mean to
love
cut you
your
off,
child.
but there's stigmas. There's
Yeah.
stigmas against LGBT, and that's not cool. You
No.
know, it's a lot of stigmas.
Yep. And, like I said, everybody is going to experience some way of bias or discrimination for very stupid reasons, but reasons that come uh, in association with how you were born, whether that be by race, ethnicity, nationality, sexual orientation, gender. These are things you're born with, regardless of what anybody says. These are things that are part of who you are as a person. And just as we should not be looking at the color of somebody's skin, we certainly should not be entering into somebody's bedroom and saying, I'm going to judge you on what your choices are, your life choices are. Um, and that's all I'm hoping for, is really just to minimize the impact, because those things are going to be out there for any child of this community. It's still in transition. People are still coming to accept it. Society is not quite caught up fully. It's much better than it was maybe 20, 30 years ago, as you mentioned, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah,
My concentration is at least having that child have one safe space, their home, to feel like it's okay to be me. Because it may take a while for the rest of the world to catch up. But at least if they can be themselves in their own home and feel safe and feel accepted and feel loved, to me, that is the most important thing, because it will set up how that person can develop resiliency outside the home. And, I have a lot of Thorin's friends that come to our house so they can be called by the pronouns that they choose, so they can be called by the name they would like to be referred to, because they can't do that at home. And I'm not here to parent other people's kids.
understand.
But it's one little thing that I can do in the life of that child to make them feel not as isolated, not as discriminated against, and not
That
strange
kind of
who they
that,
are.
that kind of put a big dart on your back, because now the parents are thinking, "Oh, she's doing this for the kids and that and being lax," but you're not. You're
Yeah.
allowing them to think and be themselves.
I don't parent those kids outside of my own home, but they know if they walk through my threshold, there's going to be a place of safety and compassion. And that's what I would like for other people to have if my child goes to their home, is just to respect my child and, you know, treat them as they would anybody else and any other friend. If Thorin had been born male, nobody would care that he wants to be male. The fact that he wasn't is one of those things, but what difference does it really make if he was born one way or if he wants to become that? What difference does it really make in the greater world, in anybody else's life? Um, and that's what I just want people to understand, is that they're people who just want to be who they are. It doesn't have to be about politics or legislation or any of these big buckets that people tend to talk about the LGBTQ community. It's like they want to stand on a soapbox and make it more than it is. In At the very heart of it, this community just wants to be accepted, and it doesn't matter in what way. And utilizing it. We are in a presidential election year, so everybody's going to be talking about the hot topics. And people will be making a choice based off of which way a politician stands on a certain issue. And, gay and lesbian rights are one of them, and it's pretty sad that that is a thing.
Hot topics. Now I gotta ask, what's the hot topics between Republican and Democrat? With this being said, you are older than me. You know these things. Tell me.
Oh, well, um, I don't want to get too political, Kim. Don't make me get too political, Kimberly. Let's just say one party is a little bit more embracive of LGBTQ rights and just acknowledgement. Things like gay marriage. Why do I care? Why does a voter care if I'm married to a man or a woman? Like, really? Why do you care who I marry? But at the end of the day, that legality enables two people who choose to be together, like any other male and female couple, the advantages and benefits of being legally married, whether that be medical benefits, insurance, retirements, any kind of benefit, those go to a spouse. Well, if you are not legally allowed to be that person's spouse, that's wrong. It's like, why can't I get medical coverage for the person that I have spent the last 10 years with because they're the same gender as me? Like that has never made sense to me. And so that's where it gets political, right? It's where people start picking and choosing who is allowed to be who they want to be. And, and like I said, some parties are a little bit more embracing than others. I'm just going to leave it at that, Kimberly.
Okay. I mean, well said, by the way. I wanted to know, though, where do you see yourself going for the future with the genealogy and you embracing your son's being transgender?
Well, this next year is going to be a little bit more of a personal journey. My son's going to be 18 in January.
Wow.
So we're going to be transitioning. I use that word a lot. From a teenager to a young adult, and medically, we've made choices of not to start certain therapies, hormone therapies, while they were still maturing physically.
I like that. That should be something that all parents do.
Yes, and they were very good. He was very good about allowing me to discuss this with their primary care physician. We researched it. And I know it was a source of frustration for them because they were they wanted to get started. And I was like, you're not mentally or physically mature enough for that next stage. But that next stage is around the corner. And after January, I won't have a say legally in what their choices are, because I'm no longer the parent of a minor. So I don't have a seat at the table if they want to sit down with a doctor and discuss what's next for them. So that's going to be a part of our journey is the next year for that. My hope is that now that I finished and published Embracing Love for the parents, like a parent's guide, I've approached Thorin about doing another book in like a series that would target from the perspective of the child.
Wow.
And so, I want to do maybe another book that would be aimed at how do you as a child approach these relationships, these different members of your personal community. How do we give them the tools to actually have a conversation versus going into themselves and internalizing all of the things that they're feeling? and it's hard. You know, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, and I don't pretend to be in my book in Embracing Love. I specifically say in the introduction, I am not a mental health professional. I'm a mom, and this was my experience, and this was my journey. And so I want to, like you said, with, you know, being more in activism and having them have a voice later in life for the next generation. That's what my hope is, that maybe this project will help them pass the torch on and make it easier for maybe the next generation.
Yeah.
So that's one project, but genealogy is another one of my loves. So I'm almost done with a beginner genealogy book. So it's based off of the course that I've taught for about 10 years on, you know, just how do I start if I want to research my family history. So the book will take you through those different stages and the different types of documents and resources out there. And then I have another book in the pipeline. I'm fascinated by true crime. Everybody thinks I'm a little weird in my household, I'm not going to lie. But while I was teaching a genealogy class, they caught the Golden State Killer with utilizing genetic genealogy. And I was so floored by that. And since that has happened several years ago, so many cases, so many cold cases have been solved because of genetic genealogy. So I'm planning a project where I do an introduction of what is genetic genealogy and how it works and how it's impacted law enforcement, but then also do sort of like a case study of maybe 10 different cases that would never have been solved without genetic genealogy. It's a very specific area of genealogy. I'm not up on the science, but I have a friend who is a doctor that teaches forensic genetics, who's going to help me with that project. But I think that's just a fascinating, another way to give people a voice.
You are working on your master's, aren't you?
I am.
Graduate 2025.
2021. That was one thing when I saw your background and bio, I was like, I'm feeling very connected. Yes, I am taking my second to last course to get my MBA with a concentration in leading organizational change. And after I'm done with the class that I am in, I've got 5 more weeks of this class. I have one more class to take, and I will be done. And my husband is a university professor at the university I'm getting my MBA from. So I'm kind of hoping that he's going to be the one to pass me the
What is the university?
It's a small university in Vermont. It's part of the Vermont State college system. It's called Castleton.
So you had to basically write something in order to get in. You had to write, I forgot what they call it, like some type of statement in order to get in. I didn't have to do that. That is hard in itself, you know, but hey, you did it.
It's almost over. I'm really looking forward to it being over.
Sat up there, you blinked. You just blinked 3 times and now it's almost over.
It's almost over. But I feel it's taken a long time. Not going to lie. It's taken a long time to get through. Had a lot of challenges, but you know, it's around the corner, and I'm really excited to see those 3 letters after my name. I'm not going to lie.
You deserve it.
MBA.
How can the people reach you? Because I actually went over, but it was worth it.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm on, I have 3 different companies right now. So I have my genealogy company, which is forgeresearchassociates.com. I still have a touch in HR. I am an HR consultant with Meridian HR Solutions. And my publishing company is HG Creative Works. And that's where you can find information about the books that I'm working on, that I've finished, and the book is also published on Amazon right now. So it's on Amazon and Kindle, and a paperback. So I'm excited. We're actually doing a promotion. I didn't time it just with your with your show either, but starting Thursday through next Monday, the book is going to be free on Kindle for anybody. Doesn't have to be an unlimited.
How many pages is it?
Anybody can get the book for free.
How many
My
pages?
oh gosh, it's like close to 200, I think, on
Okay,
Kindle.
I can read that.
On Kindle, you know.
2 hours to 3 hours to read. So
Yeah.
What is it about again? I just want to know.
So, Embracing Love is just a parent's guide to nourishing and celebrating your LGBTQ child's identity. And it's very straightforward. It does a lot in terms of, it talks about my journey specifically, but some of the common hiccups of this just learning all the different, like you said earlier in the show, it was like there was gay and lesbian. That was our those were our two choices when I was young. And now there's a spectrum of people, and it's just learning. Sometimes you're just focused on your child's one particular segment, but the more we learn about the entire community and the variety of people who are members, it's just, to me, knowledge is only power if you use it. And that's a quote from somebody, and I can't think of who it is, but it's not mine.
That book deserves to be in Barnes and Noble.
Well, actually, you can get the paperback on barnesandnoble.com. Yeah. Okay. And I highly encourage anybody who reads it. I would love feedback. This is my first book, and I'm not afraid to not get a 5-star rating. I think I need to understand what people want and what they identified with, and maybe what they didn't. I have no problem with somebody reviewing it and maybe not having it be their cup of tea. It's that kind of book, and I'm prepared for that. But I just welcome anybody to read it and share it if you know of somebody, because you don't have to be a parent you don't have to be a parent at all, technically, but specifically a parent of an LGBTQ child. But chances are somebody who might be going through this, or they just had their child come out and the parents are like, what? Because sometimes you can't see it. You're like, wait, what? And, my own mother, we have a very close relationship, but she struggles with this particular aspect, because she's used to having a granddaughter and all that comes with. And there's a lot of terminology. My mom is, in her mid to late 70s, and it's a completely different generational awareness. And it's not for a lack of acceptance or that she doesn't love, Thorin less. She absolutely adores my child, but she's not really educated as to, what to do, what to say, because they're constantly, battling social norms, So when Thorin comes downstairs in a skirt, my mother's like, oh, then they're really not transgender. No, that's not what that means, Mom. It's confusing. And, that's part of what the book's about. It's not one thing. You think you are, oh, okay, my child is gay. Oh, maybe not. It's a process. There's a lot to take in as a parent, and it's just strategies. And like I said, I'm not a mental health expert, but these are things that I identified, that I went through, that worked well for me, or that I wish I had done sooner. I wish I had done better. So there's all sorts of things, and I hope that people can just walk away with maybe a little bit more insight. That's my only goal.
Well said. Last question, because we're almost at an hour anyway. Wow, if you had to give a piece of advice to an LGBT member out there in the world, because this is worldwide, what kind of piece of advice would you give them? Like, because each country is different,
Hmm.
so how would you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, the global implications of the community is sometimes rewarding and wonderful, and sometimes it's absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
We learned recently in the Olympics, there were people who thought certain athletes were maybe transgender, and it was a big thing. And I'm like, in some countries, it's illegal. It is illegal to be transgender. It is illegal to be gay. People are killed for their gender or sexuality, or um, it's not accepted everywhere. Um, and we can all, even in the most progressive of countries, there are still, obstacles and discrimination. And I think some countries really do it well in accepting, and some countries really need to, transition into this modern era of acceptance and just respect.
Do you think that's why probably Twitter is banned in Brazil and plenty other countries because of his freedom of speech type tactic that he's doing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's tough because I mean, I have, genealogy speaking, I have ancestors that go back to the Mayflower. I have deep roots in the formation of the United States. However, um, free speech is a tough thing. You want to be able to feel comfortable in saying what you feel, and democracy is sort of based on that.
Mhm.
But on the other side of that, allowing people to perpetuate discrimination, disrespect, hate, I mean, and in all sense of that word, is, to me, it's not a fundamental right that we necessarily should have. I mean, there are things that people should have enough self awareness to say that kind of speech is going to generate action, and not in a good way. And so I struggle. I honestly do. I struggle with what is appropriate to be out there, and what is just not the right human thing to do or say. Um, but we live in a country where we pay for that freedom to say whatever it is we want. And I kind of applaud private companies, because technically, X, Facebook, these are privately owned companies. Even though they're social media, they are privately owned companies that can dictate what, if you walk into a store and create a ruckus and you're inappropriate with the staff, they have every right to throw you out. Um, and that's the thing. You can be trespassed from literally any place that is privately owned. And these platforms fall into that category. And I think we've seen some legislation recently that questions that, of, does, are they liable for what things get shared? Are they
Oh,
allowed to cut people out? So there's a lot of ambiguity with technology as it progresses. But yeah, I mean, I think, X, or whatever, Twitter, or whatever it's called today, they have every right to say, no, we're not going to allow that. If you're going to cross our, community guideline line, then we're not going to perpetuate your speech. And I think that's great. I mean, I think that's, their right to do that. I think it's also a slippery slope when you start restricting what people can say, what people can share, what people can do. Then we get back into, well, we're not really a democracy anymore. So, it's a balance. It's a balance. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to being respectful and human and compassionate. And if you can be those three things, um, you really shouldn't have an issue with any of these hot topics, because at the end of the day, you're being respectful, you're being human, you have empathy for what somebody else is going through, and that should be the benchmark, right? When you enter into these communal types of platforms, that should be your benchmark. Everybody should be no hate speech. No, you can have an opinion, but just like we're not allowed to walk into a movie theater and yell fire,
Yeah.
you should not be allowed to create destructive behavior based off of something that you utter that comes out of your mouth. And, this community is one of those areas where people tend to step up on a soapbox, and you have to ask why. Why do you feel the need to say, you can have your opinion, but why do you have to say it in a way that is demeaning or restrictive or offensive? Everybody should have an opinion, and I respect that. I respect different religions. I respect, all sorts of different cultures. Just because it's not the way I do it doesn't mean it's wrong. But I'm not going to go and say you're, a horrible person for practicing this religion. I mean, that's not my that's not my place. So I just think we just need to be more kind, and that, let people be whatever they want to be. Got
Well
too big,
said.
got too big of problems out there.
Yes, well said, Miss Gross. Stay on the line. Thank you guys. Oh my gosh, she gave me some education. Oh my God, I felt like I was in a class, a seminar, or something. You know, y'all take care, be safe, and until next time. Bye.